What's up, y'all? Y'all ever heard of something called drapetomania? I've heard of it once before, but I just came up on this post. Look at this mess, y'all. It's a Facebook post. It says, "Did you know the desire to escape slavery was once classified as a mental illness?" You can't make this stuff up, man. So, if you on the plantation, you working from sun up to sundown in the Georgia heat, you know, and you getting whipped across your back if you don't bring in enough cotton. You see, you watching your people being raped and hung from trees. You see, for no reason. You see, if you say these things, I want to escape from this. I want to escape from this environment. You know, they classified it as a mental illness. They even gave it a term. They even gave it some terminology called dreptomania in 1851. Black people were considered mentally ill for refusing to live in bondage. Man, you can't make this stuff up. Let's look at it, y'all. It says in 1851, Louisiana physician Dr. Samuel A. Cartwright claimed that the desire of enslaved black people to escape captivity was a mental illness. He gave this fabricated diagnosis the name drapetomania, combining Greek words related to running away and madness. There was no scientific evidence behind the claim. It was not a real medical condition, but rather an attempt to use the language of medicine to defend slavery. See what I'm saying? So they still do it today, man. These medical doctors, up in Harvard and all these other places, they'll throw out, some kind of medical term, and people eat it up, man. We eat it up, especially black and Hispanic people. We eat that up, man. When the white man gives something a name and says, this is the reason why, people like to wear dresses. Why a 6'5" black man would want to wear a dress and high heels? You see, they can wave it off, man. Give it a seal of approval, and it becomes law, man. It becomes law when these white folks, so-called educated people from Harvard and Notre Dame and all these other, high tier schools come up with these things, medical terminologies and stuff. It becomes a law, man. It becomes law, and it overrides God's laws. You see, that's what it says in Daniel 7, that he can change times and laws and all this stuff. You know, um, so now it's crazy. You're a crazy person if you want to escape. You see, from our terroristic threats on you on a daily basis. You see, you if you want to escape me raping your kids and your daughters, your wife every night on a daily basis while you listen, you could hear the screams. You see, if you want to escape that treatment, you crazy, man. You have to be crazy. So this medical terminology that the white man just pulled out of his ass, and we still do it today, man. Anything he says goes. If he wants you to take the jab, we do it. You see, that's how slow black people are. But all the while, this man has your worst. He's not thinking about your safety, man. He's not thinking about your well being. You see, same thing with the Christian religion. If he says, the Sabbath now is Sunday, even though the Bible says you're gonna get burnt up, for breaking the Sabbath, we black and brown people, we eat it up, man. So the ideal reflected the racist belief of the time rather than any legitimate medical understanding. By labeling resistance to slavery as mental illness, supporters of slavery sought to reinforce the false narrative that enslaved people were naturally suited for bondage and that anyone who sought freedom must be irrational. And you know what? They still say that today, man. They still say that today about black and brown people. We mistreating you and we are falsely arresting you and accusing you, throwing you in prison. And if you don't like it, what they say, you must be crazy. If you don't want to live here in America, you got the best life over here in America. You see, same thing, man. These people truly believe that their mistreatment of us is justified. So it says the reality was the exact opposite. Every person who escaped slavery was demonstrating one of the most basic human instincts. Nobody wants to be mistreated. Nobody thinks like, Massa is doing good for us. Well, I gotta back that up because you have black people in the Christian church that, think that, the white man is God, man. He's God, even though they see the news every day, what's happening to us on a daily basis. They still feel like the white man has chance to be saved, because he's doing good for us. Master gave me a good job. So it's a basic human instinct to want to escape when you being harmed. The desire to live with dignity, autonomy, and freedom. Men, women, and children risk everything to flee plantations, often traveling hundreds of miles under the cover of darkness. Not all of them. You still had some Uncle Toms, that wanted to stay, man. Even they looked at us like, yeah, you crazy, man, if you're trying to escape Master. They ran and told. You see, they ran and told Master if you had plans on leaving. You see, that's still the same thing today, man. The same spirits, man. Many relied on networks such as Underground Railroad, while others escaped through remarkable acts of courage and determination, despite the constant threat of capture. So they still feel the same way today, man. They look at us like, man, what's wrong with you? This is we giving you all these things, man. We give you a roof over your head. Even though you working, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. You know, um, what's the problem? Why you wanna buck the system? You see, and they still feel the same way today. Watch this next video. I'm gonna prove it.
Hey, cut it out. You need to grow up. Stop throwing a fit. You're throwing a tantrum. Stop being a little boy. You're whining and crying about something that's ultimately your fault. Yeah. Stop blaming it on other people. It's your fault. Because here's the deal. It's like, well, slavery. The richest black people on God's green earth are African Americans. If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut. Yeah. Right, well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You get to have the Christian religion.
That's
live
right.
better than your ancestors
The
ever would
greatest
have.
moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore. Because he brings the gospel of Jesus Christ. He catechizes you and your children. He brings exports. He brings hospitals, medicine, life expansion increases, GDP, and resources increase, medicine increases, and most importantly, you get taught the gospel of Jesus Christ so that you can live longer on earth and then go to heaven instead of hell.
So look, man, they still feel the same way, man. They think it's a mental illness, when we complain about our conditions. You see, I mean, when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, you know, at every football game, I had white people ask me, why is he doing that? Why is he taking a knee? They were totally dumbfounded, man. You see, I used to question, like, are they serious? Or are they really just that dumb? You see? So the white man said, if it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for the slave ships, you would still be living in a grass hut. See, they forget that when they came over here, they didn't have a clue, man. They didn't know how to grow crops. You see, we had to teach them all that stuff, man. They wouldn't be here today. They wouldn't be here today if we hadn't taught them how to grow corn. You see, how to grow food on the land. You see, how to irrigate the land so you can grow your food and stuff. How to survive the winters over here. And oh yeah, if we were living in grass huts in Africa, how did we come over here and build the White House? How is it that we came over here and built all those mansions that you see today on the plantations? We built everything over here, man. But he says we were living in grass huts. Make it make sense. See, when you look at some of the maps of Africa from the 1500s, there were kingdoms over there. You see? There were kingdoms called Kingdom of Judah. You see? Over in Africa. Look at some of the old maps, man. You see? Kingdom of Ouida. You see? We were dwelling over there. We had kingdoms. We had kings and queens. We had doctors, architects. You see, when you read the book From Babylon to Timbuktu, we were living, we were living large by ourselves over there. You see, we wasn't living in grass huts. You see, he's either dumb or he wants you to believe that we were living in grass huts. You see, he might sound like he's highly educated, but he's very stupid. If he thinks that we were living in squalor over there in Africa. Oh, don't forget, some of the richest black people in the world live right here in America. See the deception? You see how they deceive you? Because why is it that, there's only a handful of us that made it to the top, but the other 99.8% of us are still on the bottom? You see? If it was so easy to move to the top and become millionaires, billionaires, in this world, why isn't everyone doing it? You see, that's the deception. They have to let a few of you make it. They gotta let a few of you slip through the cracks, man. They pick and choose, who's gonna make it. Who's gonna get that gift. You see, as it says in the scriptures. When you go to the book Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, it tells you a gift destroyeth the heart, man. You see? It says oppression makes a wise man mad, but a gift destroyeth the heart. You see, they have to let some of you get that gift, man. They got to let some of you make that paper. You see? That way your heart is destroyed. See, you on the top, you saying, oh, we're not cursed as a people. We're not in slavery anymore. They always had people living in the big house, in master's house, and people who lived in the shack. You see, that was done intentionally, man. It was a setup. You see, they had to divide us that way. You see, so you're gonna have some people that look like you, that are able to rise up quickly. You see, your Michael Jordans and your Shaquille O'Neals and all these your Oprah Winfrey's. You see, but think about it. Even though they made it to the top, they still not equal to the white man. They'll never be on the same playing ground as the white man. You see, because Oprah, she went overseas to Europe, and she couldn't buy a $5,000 purse off the shelf. You know, so they basically you still a nigga. You see, just like Jay-Z said, you still a nigga. You see, so no matter how much money you have in this world, in this country, some of the richest black people in the world live here in America. You still not on the same playing ground. You have millionaire athletes driving to the Super Bowl game. You see, well known, man. The cops know these people. You know, they know who these people are, and they got them pulled over. They on face down on the ground, handcuffed, right before the Super Bowl game. You see, so no matter how much money you make, don't be deceived. You see, don't be deceived that we're not under some sort of oppression. You see, as the Israelites, black and brown people, we are still under these curses, man. You see, and until our Messiah return and saves us, we still have to be mindful. This is not our rest, as it says in Micah 2:10.